Guess it's going to be kind of like a little bit of a set 8.5 overview, talk through, etc. There's really not a whole lot that was changed in between 8 and 8.5 in the sense that like there's no crazy extravagant things outside of just your normal mid set stuff. So I guess the biggest crazy thing now is there's going to be glitched carousels. It's kind of the whole entire idea behind the glitched out setup is that they give you some new variety with carousels, etc. I believe this will show some of them. Yeah, it does. So basically, long story short, you get potentially two items, an anvil with an item, or an egg, and some other things that allows you to have some kind of more intricate setups and things in the mid game. Glitch carousels are always going to be a thing on stage 2, and you can have up to 3 per game. So that means, stage 2, stage 4, and stage 5 can all be glitch carousels. You might have stage 2, 3, 4 glitch carousel, etc. It's pretty neat. You can get anything from a loaded dice to a duplicator to an egg, which can give you either items or so on and so forth. Now, I expect some of this stuff to change before live comes out. I actually believe they took loaded dice away, at least on stage 2. I don't know if it's still a thing later. I believe it is. So we'll kind of see how they balance this. I think it's nice. I think it's really interesting, and it adds a little bit more variety in terms of itemization and how you can get items in the mid game. It gives you an opportunity with the anvil to get something like concrete that you wanted every single time, which I think is really nice. They also made like a pretty big quality of life update with carousels. The biggest thing for me always was you had to pay attention to what unit the item was on, right? If you had 2 Samiras and you really wanted that chain, but you didn't want it to be on a Samira, well, you kind of just couldn't take the Samira then, because you then would combine and have a bad item unless you had a remover. But even then, it just wasn't always great. Now with carousels, whenever you pick a person off the carousel, no matter what, the item will pop off prior to the combination. So that Samira, whatever it may be unit you wanted, now will give you the item on the bench before combination, which I think is actually something that should have been done a long time ago. Feeling the need to like not take the optimal item because you can't utilize that combination with that item kind of just felt bad. And this should help a little bit with the RNG of things not really working off carousel very well. So I think that will be good. The game does set 8.5 does drop on the 22nd. So if you're interested in trying to kind of feel it out, play some things prior to PBE going away and prior to set launch, feel free to jump into PBE now. I will have some viewer lobbies throughout the week going up to it now. And that's kind of that. Going into like what new units there are, we've got a couple new types, right? Infiniteam and Riftwalker are the new like top typing. So Infiniteam basically gives you a portal on the board that will, if you put an Infiniteam on it, create a duplicate with the items corresponding to the typing of the unit, right? So if you wanted to have a Lucian and you wanted to duplicate it, it will give you Lucian good in slot. Not always best in slot, but good in slot items. Same with Pantheon, etc. I will have individual like breakdowns of Infiniteam, Riftwalker, Quick Draw, etc. That things that were added or changed on my channel over the next couple days. But Lucian being now an early game renegade backline carry, which is kind of nice. He's kind of a pretty good carry just in general right now. Expect that to change. Pantheon is a frontliner that does have a good bit of magic resist built into his kit. And he's pretty solid overall if you can get him 2-star early. Pike is not my favorite unit in the game right now. Pike is really strong. He does true damage, he dashes, he stuns a lot. And I think realistically, Pike's probably one of the strongest early game units for their stun, and even late game units for the stun. He just kind of is an annoying dick the entire time. You just can't get away from it. He's always going to be a problem. Gnar is the Zoe replacement for this patch. I think Gnar is a fun way for them to introduce an AD carry to Gadgettine without needing a spat. So I've actually utilized Gnar quite a few times. He feels pretty good. They've also changed how pranksters work. So frontline pranksters are more likely to jump to their backline upon hitting the prankster threshold than your backline. So Gnar is generally going to be a little stronger. He does like to get in that backline and kill things a little bit more consistently, which is nice. Morgana is a pain in the butt, as she does have a stun as well as Sunder and Shred ability right out the gate. She is kind of the Cho'Gath replacement, though I wouldn't call her a Cho'Gath replacement in the frontline sense of the word. She does replace Cho to an extent. Shen is the Infiniteam frontliner, more so than anything. Shen tethers himself to his ally and basically protects them from taking damage. So Shen then takes that damage himself, so he's a little bit more susceptible to dying early if you have something like a Misfortune shooting and hitting the backliner really quick, basically giving Shen double damage in that scenario. But he's really strong, especially early game, and if you can Infiniteam him and get 2 of them going right out the gate, feels really good. Vex is kind of your Zoe replacement in terms of a blue buff damage dealer. All of Riftwalkers feel really good right now, and I think almost all of them are playable. I think, though, Pyke and Vex are the most effective, with Jhin being a little bit more susceptible to questions because you need that Renegade value, which can sometimes be a little problematic. He is relatively good, though, and he does do pretty good damage and for what it's worth. Aatrox is kind of your Zac replacement now, as Zac is now a portion of Riftwalker, which we'll touch on in kind of in our Riftwalker overview video. So basically, Aatrox heals and gains more HP, going into basically like his ult mode. I don't know the exact phrase for it, but he's pretty strong. He can drain tank for a long time, and generally is kind of a menace to society when given the opportunities. Garen is the set replacement and kind of a Sejuani replacement. Garen now has a stun and can kind of be a problem. I think Garen is probably one of the best frontliners to add into a lot of comps right now, as there's a lot of AD options in the set that I feel like you really kind of want Defender for right now, at least that I've seen in the PBE. And so Garen is basically just like a big stun with basically a 1 to 2 second stun, 1 and 3/4 second to 2 second stun at 1 and 2 respectively, and just does kind of a total nuisance move. I think Garen will be a must play in most comps. Just he's super good. He's Sejuani replacement. So if you want that more full board stun, right, you need to use Garen's. It's just there's really no other options. We touched on Jhin very slightly, but long story short, Jhin has 4 shots. He cannot get a faster attack speed, but his attack speed is converted to damage. So I've seen it done where someone puts like a Rage Blade on Jhin and he just then scales a ton of damage with it. It's a little weird. I don't know exactly the best in slot with Jhin, but he feels pretty much like a Last Whisper, Runins plus something kind of deal. Last Whisper guaranteed wanted, just because you really need to kill people with your one hits. And then after that, it's kind of preference. Neeko is replacing your Talia in this set. I think Neeko's pretty nice because she does kind of a bounce attack. And so she doesn't struggle with the same issues I think Talia had, where you needed to have like a straight line between both tank and damage dealer to really get Talia value. Positioning was super important. And sometimes you just straight up couldn't position for everything. And so she feels really good. I think Neeko right now is very much playable, very much a top 4 comp in PBE that I've seen. Twisted Fate is now a interesting one in the sense that it's a duelist that scales off attack speed and does AP damage. So you kind of get this weird setup where Twisted Fate is kind of like the default for me in duelists, just because you have a lot of AD anyway with duelists, just because of your attack speed, and the AP is nice. Twisted Fate also just does good damage, period. Rage Blade is much required, but kind of feels just interesting. Like it's a cool concept, right? You can play him through Affiniteam, you can play him through Duelist, or you can play him through Spellslinger. From my experience, you want at least a couple Duelists, but we'll kind of see what happens with him as live comes through. Warwick is back in the game. Warwick is a laser core admin brawler, giving admin a more consistent capped out AD carry. This does replace Soraka, meaning that you only have realistically one AP carry in LeBlanc for admin now, unless you have a spat. It does not mean admin is bad. Admin is still very strong if you high roll with it, but it is something to kind of keep in mind. I like Warwick in a brawler vertical comp at times, as well as you get admin with both Blitzcrank and Warwick, but it kind of depends. Ultimate Ezreal now is going to be basically your de facto Aphelios carry. He's replacing Aphelios. He's Infiniteam. I think Ezreal, Ultimate Ezreal, that is like the strongest, the absolute strongest cap you can have right now for AD. Super, super good. And with Infiniteam, you can basically get 2 Ezreal 2-stars out in some scenarios, or 2 Ezreal 1-stars with items, etc. And the ability basically just decimates grouping. It's super anti-grouping because he sends out a bunch of like Ezreal ults across the board. And it's so freaking strong. So strong. Sivir's now Infiniteam Sure Shot though, and then these are all the ones that trait changed here. So we got Parallel, which is something we'll kind of briefly touch on with Infiniteam. Basically, it's if you have 2 Ezreals on the board, Ezreal and Ultimate Ezreal. Kai'Sa now no longer is going to be a recon, and she's going to be quick draw along with Ezreal. Vayne gets actually quite a big damage increase now, as Vayne is only duelist Anima Squad and no longer going to be recon as it's gone. Misfortune now is Ace quick draw Anima. Viego is a Heart, which I think allows for some interesting Spellslinger setups with Heart, as you can get Ox Force with Annie and Viego, and I think that feels pretty good. And then Janna is now just a forecast Spellslinger, meaning Janna is going to be more of a carry rather than just a buff, which is kind of neat. They removed Galio, Talon, Yumi, Cho, Senna, Vel'Koz, Zoe, Sedge, Set, Soraka, Talia, Zac, Zed, and Aphelios. There's a couple new traits here, as you can see. Infiniteam, Parallel, Quick Draw, Riftwalker. Basically just, long story short, opens a portal and you spawn extra units. You get 2 portals at 5, you get 1 at 3, and at 7 you basically get 2 Woodland Charms. Parallel, basically the Ezreal becomes slightly stronger, base Ezreal and Ultimate Ezreal. Quick Draw, you're going to shoot extra projectiles with your abilities, and those extra bonus shots deal so much damage, whether it be 50, 90, or 150. And Riftwalker basically creates a Zac out of thin air. And a little bit, I wanted to show this. The way it works is whatever Zac is closest to, it creates a copy of that trait. So Pike, you get a Hacker, Vex, you get a Mascot, and Jhin, you get a Renegade. Pretty much as simple as that. They changed Oxforce, Laser, Renegade, Sure Shot, etc. as there's less or more units in the situations, or just kind of changing them in general. Hacker now gives the Rider extra value, so you can hacker something that isn't necessarily a hacker. Hacker something that isn't necessarily a hacker and get some extra HP regen, which is kind of nice. Or HP lifesteal, excuse me. Omnivamp. Laser Core now does slightly different setup for it. Like at 5, all units get Laser Core drones, and at 6, all units get Laser Core drones. Now that there's only 5 of them, it's a much different composition and setup in general, in my opinion. Oxforce goes from a damage scaling setup to now tank. Renegades is a little bit neater, in my opinion, because there's more verticality available without spats. You can get to 5 pretty easily now and get a pretty good value out of it. This is where Jhin kind of comes handy. Though you do need to be careful because, again, you're kind of lacking frontline with it still. Sure Shots now are vertical 2, 3, 4, 5 rather than just 2, 4. So admin and a bunch of these things just had minor changes. If you pay attention to the patch 7.5, then you can see those are all normal. Other than that, they added lesser champ duplicators. That's kind of it. I'm gonna kind of call it for this set 8.5 rundown setup. If you want more info on anything individually, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be going over like all the kind of changes and things for each individual one, if possible, in videos going forward. Otherwise, just gonna be doing like a just a generalized overview of every added one or deleted one, etc. So that's kind of it. Thanks as always for watching, and if you like it, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.